is Gemara in Kesubos Daf Yud Aleph, and we're holding the very top of the Amud. We finished yesterday with all the different words. Finished off with the word of an islandist, and an islandist is a woman who can't give birth. And now we discuss, continuing in the discussion of a ksuba, continuing in a type of woman that potentially does get like a basula or not, the woman who are this gray area, the basula, a woman who never slept with anyone, gets 200, almana 100, now we're dealing with all the gray areas. So said the Mishnah, Hagiyoires hashvuya, a woman who becomes a ger, hashvuya, a woman who is captured, hashivcha, a maid servant, sheniftu, all these three women that were redeemed, shenis gairu, or she became a geris, shenishtachru, or she was freed from being a slave. At what age? When she was younger than 3 years and 1 day. Why is 3 years and 1 day, as we've spoken about? Because the tashmish of anyone less than 3 years old is considered nothing. It's like noisin etzba b'ayin, putting your finger in the eye. Nothing happened. So even if she was abused by her master, even if while she was a guy, she might have had relations, it doesn't make a difference to us if she was redeemed, if she came a ger, if she got freed at an age of less than 3 years and 1 day. Kesubos and masayim, she still gets a regular 200. V'yish sometimes besulim, and we assume that she still has besulim. Says the Gemara, Amar Avuna, let's do a little bit about Gerim today. How do you have a Gerakatan? The Mishnah was discussing a girl becoming a Ger at the age of 3. How do you do that? Al Das Bezdin, on the Das Bezdin. Says Gemara, Micah Mashlan, what's the Chiddush? This Chosulai. It's a Chos to become a Yid, to become a Jew. And even though it's Shalai Befanam, quote unquote, because the person has no Das, she's 3 years old, you're allowed to be Zeich, let acquire something. I could pick up $100 and I'm picking it up for Shleimi. Shleimi is not here. If you could acquire something for someone else. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Tanina, we already learned in the Mishnah. We already learned this. So why do you have to teach us again? Explains the Gemara. You would think a guy is happy to be a guy. He's hefker. He has no rules. So maybe it's true it's gevaldik to be a Jew. But maybe a guy knows no better and he'd rather remain a guy. Because we know a slave loves being hefker. He can do whatever he wants. Kamash Malan, the Chiddush of our Mishnah is Tanimili Gadol Detan Dan the Yisura. A Gadol, a guy who is of age, an older guy. He already had Yisurim, he already did things wrong. He wants to be hefker. Avol Katan's Chasulai. But a Katan knows no better, a 3-year-old girl. We could be Taivel, she could come a ger. Aldas Bezdin. Says the Gemara, let's bring a rayo. Says the Braisa, Hagiyoris Ashvu Avashivcha, the same 3 cases. That what? Sheniftu, Shenisgariv, Shenishtachru. That was redeemed, became a ger, was freed. So what's the case? So we're bringing a raya from our Mishnah to this concept. Ravuna started off a ger could become a ger al das bezdin. So we say, how do you learn our Mishnah? What's the case of the Mishnah? My love. So the Mishnah is a gevaldik raya. That's lino al das bezdin. The Mishnah must be talking about this case that she went to the mikvah al das bezdin, and therefore we have a beautiful raya. Says the Gemara, law, raya. The father or the mother became a ger, and the children became gerim with the father. That's the case, but not necessarily is there a raya that you could be megayer al das bezdin. And why over here could they do it? Because the child is happy with that which the father does. So that's din number 1 of today. We had an opinion that says the child can become a ger al das bezdin. Why? It's a schos. I goyim like to be hefker. It's only when they know better. Is it a raya from our Mishnah? It's not a raya from our Mishnah, because we have another way of learning our Mishnah. Our Mishnah could potentially be discussing a family that becomes a ger together. Now, Amar Rav Yosef, a very interesting din. Hegdilu, you become a ger at age 5, and there are cases like this that a mother or father becomes a ger, the children become a ger with him. The question is, when he becomes of age, the girl at 12 and a boy at 13, he gets a question. He's asked by Bezin, do you want to remain a yid or not? Hegdilu, when he grows older, he's able to say no. And if he says no, he's a full-fledged guy. He's not a yid at all. On our Mishnah, what did our Mishnah say? Kesubos and masayim give a ksuba of 200. Asks Abaye, 1 second. You just told me when they become of age 12 or 13, they could say no, sayonara, I'm going back to being a guy. If you're right, are we going to give them a ksuba? We're going to give them $200 that they could just go take your cash and use it when they become a guy? Why would you pay them? Answers the Gemara, no, that's not a kasha. L'chi gadla. You know when you're going to pay them? The Mishnah didn't mean you'll pay them when they are 7 years old. It meant when they become of age and they remain a Yid, then we'll pay them. Ask the Gemara 1 second. When they become of age, they could also, the Gemara thinks at any point this ger could say forget about it. Answer this Gemara, no, they have one moment. If they were 1 moment a Yid of age, a 12 or 13-year-old, they didn't protest, that's the 1 moment of time. So at that moment of time, if they remain a Yid, they're a Yid forever. If at that moment of time they say forget it, then they're a guy. So when the Mishnah said you pay this girl, you pay her a ksuba of 200, you pay her when she becomes of age, because now she's a Yid and she'll remain a Yid. Masiv Rava, similar question, a different price that says, Ilu Nairis, these are the young girls, and Nairis from age of 12 to 12 and a half. Sheish Lem Kanas, that they get a Kanas. What's the case? Habal mamzeres, if someone sleeps with a mamzeres, a girl who's a mamzer, valanesina, she's bad lineage, valkutis, she's a kutis, al she's a convert, valashvuya, she was a captive, valashivcha, or she was a maidservant. And again, what's the case? All of these cases that they became freed, etc., at the age of 3. So we assume that even if she had relations in her state of captivity, still we assume she's still a basula. What's the din? Kanas, they get a kanas because we assume they're a basula. It says the Gemara 1 second, the same kasha. If you Rav Yosef are correct, answers the Gemara the same terrorist. Give it them when they grow up. They can still protest. Answers the Gemara. So 2 very similar kashas, the kasha of Abaya, kasha of Rava. Rabbi asked from our Mishnah, Rava asked from the Brisa of Kanas, and in both of these cases we answered the same thing. You don't pay right now, you pay when they become of age and they remain a Yid. Now the Gemara just does the math. Abaya, the first kasha, Lomer Karava, doesn't say like the second teretz. Why? Awesome Kanasa. So if there's Kanas, you did something wrong by being ma'anes this girl, so we fine you. Hainu timers iskar. So maybe in that case it would be irrelevant if even we would give it to them to eat while they became a guy, because it's a kanas. It's for the man that did something wrong, the perpetrator. So even if they were to grow up and take it out to them being a guy, it wouldn't bother us because it's a kanas. And similarly in the reverse, why ksuba hainu timers kalabain of laisia? The whole enactment of a ksuba, as we're going to see more and more in this mesechta, the whole enactment is that it's not easy to divorce your wife. So maybe that's the reason why you would give it to the girl, even if eventually she would eat it when she becomes a guy. And that's why Abaye and Rava each had their own question, again stemming from the same source with the same answer. Says the Mishnah on the bottom of Yod Amud Aleph. Says the Mishnah, now we're going to go into cases that you do not get a full ksuba. Ha-gadol shabal ketana. If a gadol, a boy of age, who slept with a girl who is a minor, or vekatan, a boy who's a katan, shabala gedayla, sleeps with a woman who's a gedayla. Umukas eitz literally means she was injured by a piece of wood, and this is just referring to any way that a woman might lose her basulim, the woman might lose her the dam without an act of tashmish. Horseback riding is a very classical example that she might lose the dam, it might not be there, which is, by the way, parenthetically, a reason why nowadays many girls get married and they don't have dam. The reason being due to the active lifestyle, many girls indeed lose that dam before they get married. But if she is a mukas eitz, all these 3 cases again, whether we have an act that she had an act of intercourse when she was a katana, or there was a katan that slept with her, or she had the dam removed by an act that wasn't tashmish, ksubas and masayim divrei Rameir. Rameir says no. In all these cases, you still get your ksuba. Why? Because you only get a reduced ksuba if, says Rameir, it was a regular act of tashmish of 2 adults, a regular act of intercourse. No. Mukas eitz, ksubas and masana. Mana. A mukas eitz, that one case gets reduced to 100. Now the Mishnah continues, part 2 of the Mishnah. Basula, we have a woman who's a basula, similar to the previous Mishnayis. Almana, gusha chaluta minan is suing now. So you have a woman who was a basula. She went all the way to the suin, she went to the chuppah, and then her husband died. Then she became a grusha. Then she did chalitza. It says Rashi on the last line over here, how do we know that she's a basula if she went into chuppah? Rashi says the reason is because the husband died right away, and we assume they never slept together. But says the Mishnah, even though we assume she is a basula, ksubasan mana, she only gets a ksuba of a mana for the simple reason right now we assume because the Maisa she went to the chuppah. Ve'in lem tainis besulim and there's no tainis besulim. Hagioiris hashvuya v'ashevcha sheniftiv shenizgav shenizakru yiseiro is albana shalom yom echad. The flip side of the previous Mishnah, when they're older than 3, so we assume that they're kept captives. We assume while they were a guy, they had relations and they lost their besulim. Ksuba samana, they only get a ksuba of 100. Ve'in lem tainis besulim. Says the Gemara. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Katan Abal Gedola Asa Mukas Eitz. So Rav says that the first case of the Mishnah, when the Katan sleeps with the Gedola, the act of intercourse of a Katan of a child under the age of 13 is akin to a mukas eitz of a removal of the psulim in an abnormal manner. Kamrita kamei de Shmuel Amar no ein mukas eitz bibasar. Mukas eitz is only if there's no act of intercourse. If it was through a ma'isa tashmish, then Shmuel says no, it's not a mukas eitz. Now the Gemara says Yikid the Masni la shmaitza babin avshei without any names. That katan abal gedola Rav Amar asam mukas eitz Shmuel Amar ein mukas eitz bibasar. So over here we have a machlekes. What is the status of a katan abal gedela? Does it create her into a level of a mukas eitz or no? That's only if it's not through an act of tashmish. Says the Gemara Masav. Now we're going to have a few questions. Masav Rav Hoshia. Quoting the Mishnah, Devira Meir. And what did the Chachamim respond? Let's be careful. Chachamim mukas eitz. Kesubos and mana. The Chachamim only said and responded to the case of Mukas Yates. Look at Rashi, he lines into the narrow lines. Mitapal Ginu Tana Litarti. The Tanakama said 2 different cases. The Katan and Gedayla, Gadol and a Ketana and Mukas Eitz. And then what did the Rabbanan respond? With one case, Shmas Minai Mukas Eitz B'Basar must be a raya. There is no concept of a Mukas Eitz through an act of tashmish from the fact that the Chacham responded only a regular Mukas Eitz without any people. It was done through it without the tashmish. That's when it's a mana. So we see that what is the sheet of the Chachamim? The Chachamim must hold ein Mukas Eitz B'Basar like Shmuel. Kashan Rav. Amar Rava responds, Alchi Kama. This is how you have to read the Mishnah. Gadol bal ketana v'loy klum. If a gadol is with a ketana, then there is nothing. Tipachas mikan. Why can I say that's a bayin? Because there's nothing that happened. Like we spoke of many times that a ketana, the act of tashmish is considered nothing, and by nothing here we means that she remains a psula and she'll get a full 200 ksuba. Bayin dami v'katan abal gedola again asa mukas eitz. That's what we're changing. If the katan is with the gedola, that's like a mukas eitz because the act of tashmish of a katan is not a normal act of tashmish. So it's similar to mukas eitz. Mukas eitz gufa. The Mishnah now continues. Plugged at the Ramei of Rabbanan. So that is how the Gemara reinterprets the Mishnah. So it's not a kasha on Rav. Omar Rami Bar Chama, we're 5 lines from the wide lines. Machlekes. What is the machlekes in the Mishnah? What is the machlekes between Rameir and the Rabbanan? You know what the machlekes is? Only b'shehikirba. Only if you knew that the kala, that the girl was a mukas eitz. That's the machlekes that the chacham say she only gets 100, and the chacham and the Rameir says she gets 200. The Rameir midam leleboy gares, Rabbana midam lelebeula. So now we have to figure out what do we consider this girl that we know lost her basulim through an act of injury. What do we consider her? Rameir says she's like an older girl that just lost her dam, and that's the reason why she still gets 200. And the Rabbanan say no, she's like a baula that lost her dam, so she gets 100. So says Rabbi Barcham, if you did not know anything, you thought she was a regular girl and you found out she was a mukas eitz, loy klum. What does loy klum mean? That she gets a no ksuba. Why does she not get no ksuba? Because this is a classical mekach toys. This is a false sale. I thought I'm marrying a girl that's a regular girl, and I found that afterwards it's a mukas eitz. There's no ksuba at all. Now the Gemara goes a bit deeper. What's Rameir doing? You said it's like a girl, an older girl that loses her dam. Why doesn't he say like the Chachamim that it's like a ba'ula girl that had a tashmish? Explains Rameir, ba'ula savar b'maisa b'dei adam. Because a ba'ula had a maisa with a man, halo savar b'maisa b'dei adam. And now the opposite, Rabbanan nedam le'ba'ula. Why nedam le'ba'geres? Why didn't the Rabbanan like Rameir? The second wide line, but there is some level of maisa, the maisa mukas eitz, that the wood remove the besulim. There is some level of maisa. That is the machlokes Rameir and the chachamim. And now we go into the end of Rami Bar Chama. Then what did Rami Bar Chama say? If you didn't know that she was a mukas eitz, everyone agrees she gets nothing. It's a mekach tais. I thought I'm getting a regular healthy girl, and there was no dam. What's the halacha? She gets nothing. Ask the Gemara, Masiv Rav Nachman. He Oimeris. There's a brayso that says if she says mukas eitzani, she comes in and says, you know why there was no dam? I was injured by a piece of wood. And the husband is like, it's not true. You slept with another man. What's the halacha now? So Rav Gamliel of Rav Elazar Aimim Namenes, she is believed. She has a believability. So what do we see? We see that there's obviously some level of ksuba, even if it's a mukas eitz, because that's the machlekes over here between the Tanakama and Rav Gamliel, whether she's going to have a believability. The Rav Gamliel is saying she is believed to say mukas eitz, what she believed. If a mukas eitz got nothing, so what's her believability? Must be a mukas eitz get something. And you just told me a moment ago, if it's lo yikerba, if you didn't know this about the girl, everyone agrees you get nothing. Ella Omar Rava, new way of learning. Bein Hikkerba, Bein Lo Hikkerba, whether you knew or not, L'Rameir Masayim, and L'Rabbanan, meaning, so according to Rameir, she always gets something. And the brayso that we just quoted there, that Rav Gamliel and Rav Elazar says that she is believed, and Mukas Eitz is a good taina. What's the reason? The reason is because we're going with Rav Meir that she always gets 200. But according to the Rabbanan, Hikkerba Mana, Lo Hikkerba V'Loiklam. That's what Rava's statement was. Again, according to Rav Meir, whether you knew she was a mukas eitz, whether you did not know before the marriage, she always gets something. So now the brayso that said that she could claim mukas eitz and has a believability is going with Rav Meir. Beautiful that she has an amanis to say mukas eitz. But the Rabbanan says Rava, no. If he knew, you get 100. If you did not know, you get nothing. But the Gemara comments, Rava. Indeed, Rava was chayzer. Rava does not indeed say what she says, and rather, Rava is going to end up saying that you always get something, even according to the Rabbanan. And what's the raya? The Tani we learned in a brayso. Ketzad Aisha Shemra. What is the halacha of Aisha Shemra when someone defames a person? Someone comes to Bezin, I did not find in your daughter besulim. So if there are eidim, then indeed, you know this girl has no besulim because she was mizana with another man after she got married. Yesh like subamana, she still gets 100. Pauses the Gemara. She gets like suba baskilahi. If she was mizana, if an ish is mizana, she gets skila. Answers Gemara, you're right. No, let's go again. You're right. Zinsa meikara. If she was mizana before she got married, meaning if that's why she doesn't have any dam, then yesh like suba mana, then she'll get a suba of 100. And it's all gonna be one-winded raya. The Rav was chayzer to the end of the Amid. Says Rav named Rashish is a statement that we're going to come back to tomorrow, that if someone marries a girl thinking she's a basula, and indeed she's a ba'ula, you get 100. Like we just said, that if she was mizana, what's the halacha? Yesh like suba mana. And on this brayso, masiv Rav Nachman, for the fact that it keeps on being a vav at every juncture, that's how you know it's a flowing conversation. It's all one long question. Masiv Rav Nachman, and answer Rav Nachman. She says, you know I have no basulim, that after Erisin, someone was not honest me, someone raped me, and it's your bad luck, my husband. I did nothing wrong. It was after Erisin. It's true I have no basulim, but the reason why someone was not honest me, but you still have to pay me because I did nothing wrong. And the husband says that's not true. It was before we did Erisin. And I thought I was marrying a woman with besulim, and it's not true because you were mizana previously. And therefore you should get nothing And the Mishnah says, that when the husband says, loiki, that the mechli mekach tais, what does the mekach tais means? That the husband is saying, you're going to get absolutely nothing. So what do we see from this brisa? We see when someone says that if you're mezana mei kara, you get nothing. We just said a minute ago, of you get 100. But we see in a brisa, that's not true. We see in a brisa that the husband says mekach tais and you get nothing. So how do we answer up this question? Is it Basel Rav Amram and everyone was over there? When Rav Shisha said over that din, and they asked the question that it seemingly is a stira. Vishani and Rav Shisha answered, "My mekach tayis nami masayim avamana isla." You know what the mekach tayis is? The mekach tayis is not that you get nothing. The husband, when he claimed it's a mekach tayis, what did the husband claim? It meant that you don't get 200, you get 100. What's your problem? Of course, you get 100. Now, so far, what do we see? That if they say mekach tais, that she was mizana before Erusin, she's going to get 100. V'omar Rava, and here's where Rava comes in. Man, kamaisiv shaver kamaisiv. Says Rava, no, it was a very good question. Mekach tais, the gamri mashra. The word mekach tais means you get nothing. So what do we see? We see that according to Rava, that if you get married thinking she is a basula, and indeed she is not, what's the din according to Rava? Mekach tois. And this is not like Rav Chia bar Ravin. Ve'ela kasha hach. So it says Gemara 1 second. So it's a kasha to Rav Chia bar Ravin. So what do we have to answer? Rava is going to explain. Taretz ve'mahachi. Im yish eidim shezin tzatach. Go all the way back to the top. Remember we said over here, we're highlighting it, that if there are eidim that were mezaneh, and we said you get 100, and we asked if there are eidim 1 second, she should get skila. So now the Gemara finally to the bottom reinterprets that. Im yish eidim shezin tzatach b'skila. Zin samei kara. You get nothing. But the price is at 100. Nimseis mukas eis yesh log suba mana. That's the case that you get 100, and that's how Rava's answering up this whole shtickle taira, that if the mukas eis you get 100. V'Rava huda amar l'Rabbanan lo yikar bav lo yiklam. But we said before that Rava says according to Rabban you get nothing. It's very clear for the fact that Rava clearly says that a mukaseis gets 100 and answering up this sira because he held the mekach tais meant nothing, and therefore he has to retranslate and he has to say that when it's mizana tachtav, it's true she gets skila. If it's mizana before and she gets nothing, and if it's a mukas 8, you get 100. It must be the Rava held, like that the Chacham Shita indeed is. He is chayzer that a mukas 8 get 100. We'll pick it up from Tana Rabbanan in the next year.